Hey, hello everybody. I hope you are having a great day wherever you are. Today we're going to be drawing a hummingbird and we're going to do it in a black and white grayscale with graphite pencils. The picture that you see next to me is a hummingbird that I took a photo of in Costa Rica. When you're working, you can use reference photos that you find from the web, but you just want to make sure that you change it a little bit so that you're not completely copying the photographer. And you also need to check and make sure that the photographer is okay with you using those images at times, because some people are not. It's not royalty free. Of course, this one is, because this is one that I took, so I'm going to allow you to draw from it. I'll include in the comments this photo and also a PDF of everything that we go over today. So let's talk a little bit about the supplies that you're going to be using. I have my coffee here. And then you want to have a pencil. I'm going to be drawing with a black wing pencil because I want to make sure that you can see what I'm working on. You might want to use an H pencil or a simple number 2 drawing or a regular pencil. It doesn't have to be a drawing pencil. An eraser and then some type of paper. I'm going to be working in my sketchbook, and I also like to have something like this, like a little clip to hold down the pages. It just helps when I'm working, everything lays flat. You don't have to use this, but I just thought I'd give you that tip because it is helpful at times. All right, so let's get started. All right, one of the first things that I talk about when I'm teaching a drawing class, we used to talk about this in my perceptual drawing 1 and 2 class, is chiaroscuro. And I'll write that right here. Chiaroscuro. Chiaro means light, and then scuro means dark. It's an Italian word just meaning light and dark, basically exactly what it sounds. And what that means is that when you're drawing something, you want to make sure that you have a light source and you want to make sure that you have a good shadow. And then there's lots of shadows in between as well. A good little exercise to do is an imaginary sphere. And when you get the PDF that I've included, it will have a little exercise that you can do. And you can basically just redraw the sphere that you have on your paper. So if you want to do it with me now, you want to start with a little circle like this. And again, I'm using a darker pencil. I'm using a black wing matte pencil. I also have an H pencil. I'm going to try to use the H, and if it's not showing up, then I'll switch back to the black wing. I recommend that you use an H or an HB. And we're going to do something called hatching. You may know all this, and if you do, then you can just breeze past it and skip to the hummingbird part if you want. But hatching is when you're just putting lines close together. Cross hatching is when you go the other direction, and then it automatically gets darker. And you can do that gradually so that it goes from light to medium and back the other direction, and then you have a dark. What I want you to do in this sphere is to try to have maybe 5 different values. So you can have up here, I'm going to use my black wing pencil so you can see it. So you'll have the white of the paper. Number 2 will be a little bit darker. Number 3 will be even darker. 4, and then finally the darkest. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So you have the white of the paper. Then you barely press down. And black wing is pretty dark. It's a soft graphite, so it's pretty dark. Then you slowly press down a little more. Then you slowly press down a little more. And then finally, you can press down the hardest to get your darkest value. And you can go back and cross hatch too if you want to get it even darker, because that's going to be your darkest value. So have at least 5 values like this. And I'm going to start with the H pencil, like I said, if it shows up, just because I'm more comfortable sketching with a lighter pencil at first. And I'm just going to go one direction, starting using the side of my pencil point And when I'm drawing, I'm quiet, so I'll try to keep talking so there's not just silence. So I'm starting to get a little bit darker as I go around the edge. And then I'm gonna get a little bit darker, start to go the other direction as it rounds away. And you see how I'm shading right up against the line. You can even, I use my black wing to draw the sphere, so I didn't want to press down so hard, but I'm just gonna clean it up a little bit with my H pencil. Just so we have a good circle there. All right, you want to have the spot where the light is actually hitting the sphere. That's going to be your lightest light. That's going to be the white of the paper. And then where the light slowly moves away, and this is a good exercise if you want to like grab an apple or an orange, you know, something sphere shaped, circular, so you can practice and see how the light hits it. That's another great exercise to do if you've never done that before. So we're going to go the other direction to get it a little bit darker in here. So now we have 1 value, 2 value. We want to do 3. There's my 3rd value. And I'm starting to do some cross hatching. Then we want to have 4, and I am going to use my black wing pencil in a second. And you actually want to keep it lighter, maybe the number 2 or the number 3. I'd say the number 2 value right here, because that's actually where the light is bouncing off of the surface and hitting the object again. So like right here, it's actually going to be as light as maybe like this area in here. And then you can put your 4th value, say like here, making sure that you're leaving, and if you lose it, you can always take your eraser back and you can pull it back out again. All right. Okay, then we want to work on the shadow, and that's where our darkest value is going to be, on the shadow. Except if you actually look at a shadow, does anyone know where it's going to be the darkest? It's going to be where it sits right on the surface. That's where it's going to be the darkest, and it actually gets lighter as it moves out. So if you look at a shadow, it's going to be the darkest right in here. And I'm going along the edge to make it a little more clean. There's also blending stumps that you can use. A lot of people like to use blending stumps with graphite pencils. I didn't want to make you have to get another supply. Usually people just happen to have an eraser. If you don't have a nice drawing eraser, then you might just have the eraser on the back of a number 2 pencil, and that's okay too. All right, so you see how it gets darkest on the surface, and then as it moves away, it gets a little bit lighter. That's our sphere. We're going to use this idea to do our hummingbird. All right, so now we are going to start with our hummingbird using the chiaroscuro method of light and dark shading. If you look at the picture that I've included below, the picture that I took of the hummingbird in Costa Rica, it looks like the light is coming from the top right. It was kind of an overcast day that day, but you can see clearly that the light's coming from the top right, and there's a little bit of a highlight in the eye of the bird. So you want to make sure that you have enough room on the page. We're going to start with a small circle, kind of like this, and then a big oval for the body. I like to draw in shapes and break down the animal into shapes. And I'm not always worried about things looking perfectly photorealistic. If you follow my work, you'll see that I kind of try to put my own style, my own flair on it. So that's what I want you to do too. Right now I'm just basically lightly putting in where the wing's gonna go. And then, let me move this up a little bit. There you go. Right. Okay, so once I have my basic shapes, I kind of know where the wing and the little other side of the wing, and then the tail got kind of cut off, but it's going to be down in there somewhere. I know where that's going to go. I'm not putting any details yet. I'm just putting the outline of the body. Now I'm going to start to connect it a little bit. So that's going to be the neck. Here's the top of the head. It's going to be somewhere in there. And you see I haven't erased yet. Now it probably looks like a different bird right now, right? I know that if the eyeball is in here somewhere, which it looks like it's in there, the beak is gonna come off this way. And this is just my basic line art to figure out where it's gonna go. You can also use sighting and measuring, like see how big the head is. And then you want to see how long the beak is. So I'm going to go over to my photograph. You do the same if you have it. And then I'm measuring the head. And the length of the head is about the same size as the beak. So let me see if I did that right. I got this. It's a little bit longer. So I know it needs to come out to here and maybe even a little bit longer. Because hummingbirds have a really long beak so that they can get into flowers, right? And I actually drew this hummingbird a little bit larger than life. No, I'm just kind of sectioning out where the colors are going to go, even though we're just doing it in black and white today. I just want to have an idea where my shading is going to go. All right, the green kind of comes around this way, around the wing here, and then we have the little feet hanging onto the bird feeder. You can just lightly sketch in a little bit of a bird feeder and just kind of leave it like that if you want. So we know that something's there, but you don't have to finish it off perfectly. All right, so then that'll be our bird. I think I'm gonna give him a little more of a belly here. Okay, so now we have our sketch. Let's do a little bit of shading. Okay, for the shading, I'm just gonna clean up my lines a little bit. And I have one of these guys too. If you have one of these, this is an eraser pencil and it comes in handy if you have little details. I like to use it sometimes when I'm working in charcoal for little bitty highlights. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna shade this just like I did. Actually, I see this came down a little more. You can fix wherever you need. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I think his feathers need to be down a little more. Probably his tail comes down like that. All right, so I'm gonna start shading with my H pencil. Just saw that hand come in a little more. My first value. Remember, we want to do like 5 values. So I'm just going to go this direction and start shading my first value. It's a little darker in here. And you see how I'm using the side of my pencil point? It's darker on the underbelly. And even darker on the wing here. I only see one spot where I might leave the white of the paper, and that's probably in the eyeball. Maybe a couple spots on the feet. And you can always come back and take it out with your eraser. Right now I'm just doing a little bit of light hatching to put some value in there. This is going to be a little darker here. Your H pencil, if you have an H pencil that you're using, I think this is like a 4H. It's never going to get super dark because it's what's called a hard pencil graphite. So you can push down as hard as you want, but it's never going to be super black like a black wing pencil. That's a softer pencil graphite. All right, so we got some basic values in there. Now I'm going to come back and start to put some darker values in my beak here, because I want the light to be on the top of the beak where I saw it. And then I see a little bit of dark in here, a little bit of dark in here. I'm also going the direction of the feathers. So note that I'm taking a look at the direction of the feathers. And again, I don't want it to be photorealistic. That's not my goal here. I'm just trying to capture the essence of this little hummer. Like, where is it light? Where is it dark? What is the shape of its wing like? So please don't get frustrated. Don't try to make it look perfectly. I might even leave a line like that. Who knows? I'm just working in my sketchbook. And this wing is darker. It's a little bit darker on the underbelly, because we want the light to be coming this way. So we need to have it a little bit darker on the underbelly and even darker on the wings that are behind. Okay, then a little darker on the tail at the bottom. I don't know if that is a tail. Now that I look at it, it looks like, oh yeah, it is a tail. I see. It is the tail coming through, and then that's the wing on the other side. So I'm going to take this light out a little bit. There we go. Yeah, you have to pay attention to these things and try to figure out bird wings. There's some individual feathers you can put in here if you want to. Doesn't have to be exact. Just make it look like feathers a little bit. A couple little feathers here, this way. A couple little accents. All right. Maybe a little more of a shadow here, because that's in front of the foot, and we want the foot to come out a little more here. And a few details on the claws here, a little bit of shading there, a little bit of feathers poking out this way. All right, now let's start to do some details. So I might do a little detail in the eye. Some shading here. I'm just going to shade the whole thing a little. And you could think of, you know, the eye is a sphere, right? So where does the light hit this eyeball? So I'm going to put that in there. I see a little bit of a highlight there. So I'll put that in. And a little darker here. And you just keep working until you feel like it's done. Getting all smudgy. gonna slowly start to clean it up some. Take my H pencil and go back along this edge. Because I do want a lighter value, but I still see. Remember when we were shading the sphere and it was a little bit darker along the edge as it moved around? That's what you want to create. And I'm creating that by using a lighter pencil and just doing some little hatching marks. Okay, what else should we do? Again, this is just a sketch in my sketchbook. And I just want to capture the basic values that I see. I'm going back over this because I see that it does need to be a little bit darker. And the H pencil kind of fills in the toothiness a little bit. So if you do want it to be darker on the underbelly here, it slightly fills in the tooth of the paper. Alright. Still think that I need to get a little bit darker on these feathers here, so I'm gonna pull this a little bit darker. So I might end up having more than 5 values. It's up to you. Whatever you feel like. If you want it to call it done, you call it done. You just want the basic essence of your little hummingbird here. Alright. I do have a Discord group. If you do this drawing, I would love to see you post in the Discord and show us what you did. If not, just keep it to yourself and your sketchbook. I have a lot that I draw in my sketchbook that I don't ever post on social media, because sometimes you just need to do something for yourself too, you know? All right, I think, let's see. I think I'm gonna add a few little feathers in here, and then we're gonna call it done. So just a few little details like this. Oops, one last thing. I'm gonna clean up the beak a little more, and a couple little accents. All right, I think we're gonna call it done. I want to see what yours looks like.